The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. I revel living in a capitalist society where people have the freedom to earn, and to quote Milton Friedman, as long as people are free to earn money, some will earn more than others. For majority of the Americans, fairness is not redistributing wealth. Fairness is rewarding merit, and this is mostly accomplished by Trump's financial policies. If I had the choice to choose from the three candidates to support, it would be Donald Trump.
Yeah, Kevin, there's like another one. It's like
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth installment of the Matter Speak series. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Mr. Glynn. I teach social studies here, including two sections of government and politics. So if you are intrigued by what you hear today, consider taking one of those classes in the future. And for those of you, doesn't look like many of you by age are going to be eligible to vote soon, but in the next few years, if you want to get registered to vote, my room is always a place you can do that. Special thanks to my friend and colleague, Mr. Dua, for organizing this event and the entire Matters series. It's a really great addition to our school culture. So, without further ado, let's get started. You'll hear from a variety of voices of teachers and students today in different forms, so I'm just here to open things up. So I've just got a few words, and I'll start with a quote, and it's a heavy quote. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Anyone know who said that? Martin Luther King, 50 years ago. He said, silent about things that matter. And that's what this entire series has been about, coming together to think and talk about things that truly matter. And the size of this group really shows how committed you all are to talking about things that matter. And I personally, as a teacher, find that inspiring. But think about how many of your peers are not here, and many of them may think that voting isn't very important. We do live in cynical times, and there are more and more who subscribe to a notion that their voice doesn't really matter, that things are the way they are and they can never be changed. But I would hope that we as educators have done better by you than that. I hope that we've helped you discover that individuals are capable of taking action and making change. I do have hope that our youth will take up that challenge to improve our society. And voting and political participation is one of the most important ways one can really do that. However, I do want to give you some sobering statistics right now about voting. Only 38% of 18 to 25-year-olds voted for president in 2012. So that's about 1 in 3 people, young people. And only 18% of 18 to 25-year-olds voted in the congressional elections of 2014, just 2 years later. That's less than 1 in 5. That Congress, by the way, is where the real action happens, but that's another story for another day. Meanwhile, people aged 40 and up, about 70% of those folks vote. So, who are politicians going to be listening to, right? If you were them, who would you be listening to? Is it a mystery why those who are 65 and older have universal government-sponsored health care and a monthly Social Security benefit? While people your age and mine are required to go into huge debt just to pay for college. So, yeah, too often we're bogged down in our routines and problems and triumphs of our own lives that we forget there's a myriad of things that are much bigger than us that really do matter. Indeed, the number one reason why young people, 18 to 25, say they didn't vote in the last presidential election was they were too busy. That's it. Too busy. Yes, there are barriers that can get in the way of voting, and life does happen. But as Election Day approaches, I'd ask you to think about your priorities and what really matters in your life. Whether you want free public college when you leave here, favor immigration reform, believe that climate change needs to be tackled, favor or oppose charter schools in your city, or hold beliefs on how to stop the threat of ISIS and terrorism, you've got to vote. If you can't vote, you've still got to get involved and stand for something. It matters. Ignorance isn't an excuse. It's, frankly, the enemy of progress. So learn about what's going on. Ask questions. Teach your friends and teach your families. Engage in debate with people who disagree with you. Debate ideas, right? Whatever you do, don't stay on the sidelines. Don't fall victim to complacency and powerlessness. Your collective voices do matter. I'll go to a couple more quotes and then I'll be done with you guys today. But the famous author and anthropologist, it's a really inspiring quote I like, that said, Margaret Mead said that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Or if you're kind of a wise guy like me and you prefer the great Mark Twain, you could think of it his way. Most politicians are like diapers. They both need changing regularly and for the same reason. Thank you for listening. Get out and vote. Enjoy the rest of the presenters. Thanks.
All right. Hello, everyone. You know, I've heard some pretty bad things about Hillary Clinton. People say she's a traitor. People say she'll be the next Obama. And to them, I say, great. I think Obama's a fantastic president. You know, I hear even more about Donald Trump, but I'm not here to talk about Donald Trump. A whole lot of people already talk about him. So I think I'd rather come here today to talk about Hillary Clinton. We need Hillary Clinton for Commander-in-Chief. She promises so many great things. Things that I look forward to because I think she's going to win the election. She will spark positive change. She's trying to close the wage gap. She has a step-by-step plan to defeat ISIS. It's great. This is the change we need. Hillary Clinton, she's the perfect candidate. You know, people like to talk about her emails about Benghazi, saying that she's hiding things from us, but like, that's all the past. We need to look forward to now. People can throw anything at her, any accusation, but I think she's much more than that. And I'm with her. We need Hillary Clinton for Commander-in-Chief.
Why I'm glad Donald Trump is the nominee. Donald Trump started flirting with the idea of running for president in 1988. I turned 5 in 1988, so this has been going on for a while. Last June, when Trump officially announced his candidacy for president, my husband and I actually high-fived. Awesome! We thought, here's the circus freak show. A few months are going to be great. As his campaign actually picked up some steam, we grew even giddier. This is the way the Republican Party ends. Not with a bang, but with a huge. When Huckabee and Christie and Fiorina and Bush and Carson and Rubio dropped out, when even alleged human Ted Cruz left the race, I couldn't quite process what was happening. It's like at the end of the Planet of the Apes when Charlton Heston finds the ruins of the Statue of Liberty and he's like, oh my God, it's been Earth the whole time. It started as science fiction, but not anymore. Every day I feel like that kid who got filmed on the way home from the dentist. Like, is this real life? But a part of me is actually glad that Trump is the nominee. Call it a silver lining or looking on the bright side. When Trump was one of a dozen Republican candidates, his brand of a-holery was neither remarkable nor frightening. Over time, however, he began to stand out. As many of us became increasingly disgusted and put off, others became intrigued, even enamored. He tells it like it is, they say. He's not afraid to say what needs to be said and do what needs to be done. And that's what I appreciate about Donald Trump, his ability to shine light on the truth. Not that he's actually a Republican, which he's not, or that he's devoutly religious, which he's not, or that he has anything resembling the knowledge or expertise to run the country, which he doesn't. But holy moly, has this guy shined a big-ass light on the truth about America. As with any presidential race, polling is done nonstop. It's endless. And the polls around Donald Trump have been not that surprising. White Trump supporters, aka Trump supporters, hold negative, racist beliefs about black people, Latinos, and Muslims. They overwhelmingly support xenophobic and isolationist policies. They want to establish Christianity as the national religion, overturn Roe v. Wade and ban abortions, kick out immigrants, and build a wall to keep them out. Trump supporters exist at the intersection of fear and hatred. When videos were released of black people getting the shit kicked out of them at Trump rallies, many people were shocked. His poll numbers went up. When Trump advocated for drastically increasing deportations, many people were dismayed. His poll numbers went up. When Trump suggested that law enforcement should put mosques under surveillance, many people were outraged. His poll numbers went up. That's the silver lining. We pretend that we're post-racial. We elected a guy who's only half white, so now racism is over. A woman is running for president, so now sexism is over. Gay people can get married, so homophobia and bigotry are over. For God's sake, we have a banner on Somerville City Hall saying Black Lives Matter. Do you know how weird that is? In other communities not too far from here, if you have a Black Lives Matter bumper sticker on your car, you get your tires slashed, or worse. Somerville exists in this ever-shifting, ever-progressing blue bubble. And although I'm sure we've all seen that one person with the Trump sign or whatever, much of Somerville has been shifting more and more liberal over time. Just last week, we held a multicultural fair in this school that celebrates the differences between our cultures and encourages students to engage with other nationalities and ethnicities in a productive and collaborative dialogue. There was no hate in the gym on Friday, just brigadeiros and K-pop. Many of us, especially my fellow white folk, get to live in this fantasy land where Dr. King's dream came true. Everything is equal for everyone. Hooray, we did it! I even get to be part of that privileged white liberal group who threatened to move to Canada if Trump wins, because I can actually do that. I'm not the one who has to comfort my children because they think Trump wants to send them away or ban their religion, or worse. Don't get me wrong, the strides that have been made are amazing and wonderful. Progress is happening. But to imagine that everything's all peachy now, that's just willful ignorance. Trump's poll numbers alone prove that. After all, he and his millions upon millions of supporters want to make America great again. And we all know how great America has always been for women, black people, Latinos, immigrants, people in the LGBT community, and Muslims, right?
Okay, so I also want to talk a bit about Donald Trump, but not look on the bright side. So this election matters to me because I have no control in our government for the next 3 years. I'm a freshman like a lot of the people here. And in that time, Trump as president could sign into law a lot of harmful things that Barack Obama is currently working against, because since our Congress is mostly Republican, Barack Obama is the only thing standing in the way of this country being mostly Republican. And Trump represents a group of radical Republicans, as I'd like to call them. Not radical Islam or anything like that. He is a radical Republican. And having him as president could cause our country to regress. It could hurt minorities by encouraging racist views against black people, Mexicans, Muslims, and others. Although those already exist in our country, most people shun them because obviously they're not fair to those other people who were born that way. But if Trump were to become president, that would be the main view towards those types of people. It would push forward the opinions of those who normally are not represented because they're crazy, and this could harm the country. If crazy people have a voice in the government, then the government itself is crazy. I care because I like living here, and I believe that all types of people should be able to live here and should be welcome here. Also, having Trump as president would be bad because I'd lose all respect for the position. And the problem is that so many other people would have the same thing happen to them. They'd lose respect for the position of president, wouldn't vote for anyone because they no longer care who it is, and then these crazy people who want people like Trump to become president would have more of a say in the government because they'd make up a larger percentage of the people who actually vote. Millions of others would share this opinion with me, and this would happen all over the country to people who do not like people like Trump. So this election matters to me because I will become an adult under this president, and I really hope that person is not Trump. Honestly, I don't like any of the Republican candidates, but he's one of the worst considering all the violence and racism that happens in his rallies. So all I can say is, let's go Democrats.
I have one question. How much a dollar really costs? The question is detrimental, paralyzing my thoughts. Parasites in my stomach keep me with a gut feeling, y'all. Gotta see how I'm chilling once I park this luxury car. I've been out feeling big as Matumbo. 20 up pump 6. 30 Marcellos call me Dumbo. 20 years ago, can't forget. No, I can land on my air too. How do we stack the residuals tenfold? The liberal concept what men to do. 2006, he didn't hear me. In this, what? Africa only spoke Zulu. My American tongue was slurry. Walked out the gas station. The homeless man was semi-tan complexion. Asked me for 10 rand, stressing about dry land. Deep water, powder blue squads that crack open a piece of crack that he wanted. I knew who he smoked in. He blagged and preed it. Asked me to feed him twice. I didn't believe it. Told him beat it. Contributed money just for his pipe. I couldn't see it. He said, my son, temptation is one thing that I've defeated. Listen to me. I want a single bill from you. I told him, nothing less, nothing more. I told him I ain't having and closed my door. Now tell me how much a dollar costs. Now, the first verse, K-Dot is asking what does attaining wealth really cost? In this song, Kendrick stops at a gas station in South Africa and comes across a gas attendant who doesn't speak English. So that's why he repeats himself. He also comes across a homeless man asking for him for 10 rand, which is $1 in US money. And Kendrick says no because he thinks he is a crack addict. While we all place a small value on $1 to the homeless man, and in this song, its worth is inherently greater. Guilt tripping and feeling resentment. I never met a transient that demanded attention. They got me frustrated, indecisive, and power tripping. Sour emotions got me looking at the universe different. I should distance myself. I should keep it relentless. My selfishness is what got me here. Who the fuck I'm kidding? So I'm gonna tell you, like I told the last bum, crumbs and pennies, I need all of mine, and I recognize the type of panhandling all the time. I got better judgment. I know when niggas sus and keep in mind. When I was struggling, I did compromise. Now I comprehend. I smell grandpa's old medicine reeking from your skin. Moonshine and gin. Nigga, you're babbling. Your words ain't fabuling. I'm imagining Denzel, but looking at old Mel Kazim. It's sad thrills. Your gimmick is mediocre. The jig is up. I see you from a mile away losing focus. And I lack sensitive. And I lack empathy. He looked at me and said, your potential is bittersweet. I looked at him and said, every nickel is mine to keep. He looked at me and said, know the truth, it will set you free. You looking at the Messiah, the Son of Jehovah, the higher power, the quiet that spoke the word, the Holy Spirit, the nerve of Nazareth. And I tell you just how much $1 costs. The price of having a spot in heaven. Embrace your loss. I am God. Kendrick's selfishness and unwillingness to give the homeless man who is actually God in disguise $1, which cost him his spot in heaven. In this song, there are a lot of meanings to what wealth is. Love, health. Even after the homeless man begs for $1, Kendrick still doesn't believe him. And this shows Kendrick's greed. God was testing Kendrick to see if he would give back anything God has given unto him. Every line in this verse is powerful and true. He knows he done something that truly in his heart feels wrong, and his thoughts become more vivid after every bar. After all, Kendrick did grow too rich on his own while Lucifer and Uncle Sam was around. But he was struggled on his own and doesn't see the point in giving even $1 to the homeless man, which is why God doesn't accept him into his kingdom because of his ways. He realizes his selfishness is what got him rich and famous anyway. This also has a similar story to the sheep and the goat in Matthew verse 25, 31 to 46, which says, I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. They also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry and did not help you? He will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. Then they will go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. And this is because, similar to the election, it was Obama's favorite song that I just performed. And to me, because everybody wants power, but nobody wants to help those in need or without a voice.
To be honest, I don't even want to be here because this is hard. And what's hard about it is I'm talking about an issue that I get pissed off about. And it's really hard to have a conversation or argument with someone when you're pissed off. And you're upset or you're passionate and you want to get this idea across to them and they don't want to listen. And I'm glad that we have the opportunity to talk about different issues for the election, because every election a different issue does come up. And throughout time, things do change. And things that we want to talk about change. The issues of the United States change. But I think that one of the things that I want to emphasize, and this is the part that gets me upset, is what's your story about voting in general? Or where did that come from? This whole concept of voting. That I think what gets me upset is that people take it for granted, especially now in 2016, how easy it is for people to vote. And I could not wait when I turned 18 and I can vote. It was one of those moments where it's like the bell is ringing before a boxing match or whatever, and I'm ready to go. And everyone who is voting is ready to go. And the masses converge, and whatever happens at the end, that is who is victorious. Whether it's your issue, your candidate, whoever gets the most votes is the one that wins when armies converge at that moment. I couldn't wait to be a part of that battle. What upset me, though, is when I look at people and they tell me that they don't want to vote, that voting doesn't matter, or that there is no point in doing it. I don't even care what the issues are at that point. They're telling me it doesn't matter if I vote. Or I don't even want to. Now, of course, you get that rage that comes in inside me. And I find it very difficult to have that conversation because it gets to the point of how often are you just going to tell someone, you just need to vote? They're not going to listen to that. And what makes this difficult is how to convey the importance of voting to someone who is telling you that. Perhaps there's a little bit of a story about what happened with voting. And I think that this story is very particular to, let's say, several groups. If you are a person of color, whether it be black, Asian, Latino, Native American, whatever, and you say that you don't want to vote, that is a problem. If you are a woman and you say you don't want to vote, that is a problem. If you are an immigrant that has the right to vote and you say that you don't want to vote, that is a problem. If you are someone who religiously identifies as Jewish and Catholic and say you don't want to vote, that is a problem. We are going down this list because when the United States was just your 13 colonies, there was one group that can vote. And that was if you were a white male who owned property and on top of that paid taxes in order to be able to vote. If you lived in the city, you're looking at a percentage of about 40 to 50% of the men that lived in the city can do this. If you lived in the country, it'll be about 70 to 80%. After the revolution, a couple of things changed. Even religiously, if you were Jewish or Catholic and you happen to be a white male, you were not allowed to vote. After the revolution, they got rid of you can be Jewish and Catholic and you can vote. They loosened a couple of things on on property taxes and land ownership, but they still taxed you to vote. That meant that if any of you were 18, besides having the right to vote, you had to pay extra money to be able to vote. And it's only counted for certain people. Now, once you get to, I was thinking of doing this in terms of numbers, then you get to 18, 19. After that point, any new state that was formed in the United States explicitly denied blacks the right to vote. So you're having these restrictions that continue to happen over time. Now, things do change. And luckily, there are people that fight and do whatever they can to encourage these changes. Now, if you're a part of any of those groups, whether it's a person of color or a woman or any of this, and you're saying, I don't want to vote, what you're doing is the following. You are showing a deep ignorance. And if there's ignorance, then maybe you can be taught. If you do know, you are showing a deep stupidity, and I don't know what to do about that. And you're also showing a disrespect for the actions of other people that identify as you, that have gone through this journey to do this. Now, you have a state, Alabama. At one point after the Civil War, when you had black people that wanted to go and vote, it got to the point that when black people went to the voting booth, there were white people waiting with guns preventing them from voting. To the point that after the revolution, you had 130,000 people in Alabama that were eligible to vote. And with all of this intimidation, it dropped down to just 1,342 people. When you think about that difference, that makes a change. If those people that were able to vote were allowed to cast their ballot. But all you have is just a mere 1,342 people able to do this. That is nothing. You have before, you have at the outset of World War I, women who were wanting the right to vote. They chained themselves in front of City Hall and were taken and jailed. While they were jailed, saying, well, we can't chain ourselves in front of City Hall in order to make our point. We're in jail. We're going to have a hunger strike. Because this issue is important to us. Women should be able to vote as well. When they went on their hunger strike, the police officers from the jails would go in and force feed these women. They would put food forcibly in their mouths. We're talking people's mothers, grandmothers, sisters. That's all they wanted was the right to vote. Now you think that that's terrible, and that is true, but then you also have people who were killed for wanting to have the right to vote. Now this is the other thing. If you're saying that voting doesn't matter, why do all these restrictions come up to prevent people from voting? Getting back to that previous state of Alabama. In order to vote, you had to fill out an application in order to vote that was 20 pages long. 20 pages. And they asked you all these different types of questions that had to do with the Constitution and your local legislation and everything, that I think that you get to the point now where people can barely even say who their two state senators are. Can you imagine doing a 20-page application that goes back and forth on the Constitution? You have all of these things that people are saying, we need to get rid of that. We need to get rid of the taxing, having people pay for voting. And we did. And that was great. You had presidents that moved on and said, we need to do these different changes and allow people to go to the voting booths. Once you have the Voting Registration Act in the South, you have 450,000 eligible black voters that came out that said, we want to vote. We just want this chance to do that. And you have people that are marching and they'll get hurt and they'll get intimidated and they just want this chance. It's not something that's frivolous. If it wasn't important, people wouldn't try to prevent it. And then now we live in this age of comfort. Because you had generations before that did all of the heavy lifting, all of the dirty work. They did all of the difficult tasks, and we sit back in comfort. And we don't have to fight. We don't have to march. We don't have to be denied because of your color, because of your religious background, because of your gender, none of that. We are making strides and we're making changes, but we are very comfortable. And we are so comfortable, we don't want to get up from where we are and be able to vote. Now, the last numbers that I wanted to give you and think about is the highest turnout for voting in the U.S. history was in 1876, when 81.8% of the voting population came out to vote. That was for someone called Rutherford B. Hayes. It's the biggest one. Woo! That's a lot of people, 81. The lowest was in 1924 for poor old Calvert Coolidge. 48.9% people came out. After that, the highest it's ever been was in 1860 for JFK, his election. 63.8% people came out, but we haven't been able to top it since then. That's a lot of people that are not coming out to vote. We're looking at 57 to 61% of the vote, people that are eligible to vote, do not come out. We're talking at probably a little close to 40, a little bit over 40% of people that just stay home. They have something better to do when it comes down to doing this. They have something better to do than to honor the strides that people have done before. They have something better to do than to find a way to let their voices be heard, because I don't know if it's ignorance, stupidity, comfort, but at least now, hopefully, there is a little bit of education. And maybe when it comes to that point, people would actually get up and not only vote because it's your right, but also vote because it is an honor.
I'd like to start off by saying that I'm not the most educated person when it comes to politics, let alone this year's election. And I know last month's series was about immigrant voices, but that still connects me to being here for the election series. I am an immigrant that cares about this election. I don't represent every immigrant in this country. However, this election impacts my immigrant family, me, and my friends. And no, I'm not Mexican, but immigration laws and rights are topics that have been a huge focus for all the candidates. Imagine a person coming to the United States for work, picking strawberries in and day in and day out under the burning sun. His skin is like leather and his bones are aching. He works barely for the minimum wage to bring food to his family and yours. How does this story affect me? What does it have to do with this election? Both of my parents came to this country for work, had 2 jobs. My only job was to go to school here in the United States. Around 5 years ago, while living in the U.S., was the first time I was ever told to go back to my own country. But not by a presidential candidate on TV and not by a voter, but my 7th grade history teacher. It's hard to imagine how people feel now that this election has become intense, with voters and candidates yelling, cursing, fighting, injuring, and bullying each other and strangers, and they're arguing over me and my family, and millions like me. Right now, at this school, we have elections for class officers. Could you imagine a school as diverse as Somerville High School had students and their friends yelling, cursing, fighting, injuring, and bullying each other, all because that there are too many immigrants here in the hallways and classrooms? Could you imagine if students, teachers, and housemasters and family members actually supported such actions? Because I couldn't. And I wouldn't want any school or U.S. president to allow more division, because my parents came to the United States to feel more united.
The election is the time when everyone reflects on their values, whether they are for social justice, business prosperity, or simply taxes. We all have an idea of this utopia that America should be, but we have different ideas to bring us there. Personally, what I value is the financial aspect. When I grow up, I don't want to be robbed by the federal government with a high percentage of federal income tax. If I had the choice to choose from the 3 candidates to support, it would be Donald Trump. I do not agree with his bigoted comments. I just like his economic policies. Also, I think Trump not using a politician filter and being an outsider is beneficial for him, and it clearly shows in the poll. I personally value the economic position more because the economy is the element that allows us to survive and thrive. During the recession in 2008, the housing market crashed and there were millions of people losing their jobs, homes, and businesses. Every time I turned on the TV, the news was reporting on increasing unemployment rate. I was 7 years old and I couldn't comprehend how complex and devastating the situation was. Throughout the decade, the United States and other nations that depend on our economy has suffered. This affects everyone, everywhere, who work, save money, borrow money, buy properties, and own businesses. The federal government spends more than $3.5 trillion every year and currently have a debt of over $19 trillion and an annual deficit of $500 billion. Now, why does this matter? Because our generation is the one that has to face with this consequence that will come. This is an absurd amount of taxpayers' money being spent. And at the end of the day, the people who save money and live responsibly are the ones who have to suffer. Because the government creates inflation by the government printing more and borrowing more money. So the money individuals save or have invested become devalued. Some of Trump's policies are pretty simple, such as, in order to achieve the American dream, let people keep more money in their pockets. Or, no businesses of any size, from a Fortune 500 to a small business to a freelancer, living a job to job, will pay more than 15% of their business income tax. I understand that the utopia we dream of is a place where everyone is on the same financial level and there is universal health care. That requires a socialist ideology to be adopted, which means taxing more to those that contain more wealth. I personally don't agree with those policies. The world runs on individuals pursuing their separate interests. I revel living in a capitalist society where people have the freedom to earn, and to quote Milton Friedman, as long as people are free to earn money, some will earn more than others. For the majority of the Americans, fairness is not redistributing wealth. Fairness is rewarding merit. And this is mostly accomplished by Trump's financial policies. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Isabella Teixeira. Please don't mind the PJs. It's all about being a senior with 1 week left of school. You'll understand when you get there. But wow, I really am a senior. It feels like just yesterday I was walking around these halls, lost, confused, frightened. But I guess they weren't kidding when they said the 4 years do fly by. So, with 1 week left of school, I am completely drained of creativity, motivation, and inspiration. So bear with me as my writing is not the best right now. When I was first asked to speak at this Matter Speak event, I was a bit hesitant and scared because I feel like no one truly feels comfortable speaking about this topic. But Mr. Dua always encouraged me to speak my mind, so I decided that as a way to conclude my 4 years here at SHS, I would do my best to try to speak it out. Stand here in front of you guys is not easy, as I'm kind of stuttering, as you can see. And I don't know, I'm probably red too, but you know. Anyways, you see, as my friends are getting all excited to vote for the first time, I stand here wishing I could vote too. And my issue isn't with the age, for I am already 18, but it is with my status. I am not a naturalized American citizen. Therefore, I cannot vote. And sometimes it is hard not to feel left out of this election talk because as much as I want to be part of this decision process, I can't. But it felt too easy for me to just stand here and watch it all play out. Because even though I can't vote, I can speak. Shout out to learning about the First Amendment and freedom of speech freshman year. But all jokes aside, this election hits close to home. People in and out of this country are anxious to see how this will all end. Some cheer for her, some are feeling the burn, and some want us to be great again. I am no expert in politics, but for someone who can't perform the action of voting, the only thing I can do is discuss the ideas presented that will benefit me and hurt me as an immigrant, as a woman, as a student, and as an individual. I know I might sound a little biased considering I am a woman to say that the possibility of having the first female president sounds pretty cool, but is Hillary the right one? This would be the greatest accomplishment for America because it allows younger girls in our society who still struggle to live in a man's world to see that a woman is also good enough to lead a country. Clinton may have her flaws like any other humans, but if she makes history, it will be because she was best qualified, not because of her gender. This fall, I'll be attending Clark University with a full scholarship for all 4 years. Applying to college was hard. Finding scholarships that allowed me as an immigrant to be part was even harder. But not knowing that I might be able to walk the stage during graduation in 2020 or that my parents will be there, that's just a hard reality that I might have to face. Because of who? Trump. But then again, I'm not an expert in politics. I'm not here to tell you guys who to vote for. I'm not here to say, yo, Trump sucks, or go Hillary. I'm here to tell you guys, wake up. This election matters. And it doesn't even matter if you can't vote, because I can't either. But you can speak up. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being with us for our fourth Matter Speak. I would like to invite all of the speakers who spoke, and we would like to open it up for questions and questions from the audience, and we'll provide the answers that we can. I know that for some, this topic of election can be a little bit dicey, and also some of the people here have expressed their personal views. I think that the only thing I would like is for you guys to also consider being civil, because we are talking about people's ideas, and we don't necessarily need to get personal, or the fact that someone disagrees with you is not always a bad thing, and we can all disagree respectfully on both sides. So we would like to open it up for questions.
Bernie is actually the first candidate, so I've kind of been the person that Q feels some type of way about, where I'm like I've voted in every election, but I don't, it always feels kind of like, oh, I get to choose between two horrible people. Great. So I've always been that kind of person, and swear to God, Bernie's the first candidate where I looked at his platform, I heard him speak, I looked at the issues, and I was like I was into it. It's kind of sad that it took me that long, it took me 30 plus years to find a candidate that I was. But I feel genuinely I went to go to a rally, it was a whole thing. I'm into Bernie. I feel that burn. But yeah, I don't know. So good. It's a little late for some of us who are 10 years into paying off our loans and got 10 years left. Kill me now. But for some people who are about to acquire all new ones, it would be nice to not ruin yourself financially forever just because you're doing what they told you to do. It'd be good.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, especially from my perspective about the whole loans thing. Who does not want to not pay loans for the rest of their life? Me. So I definitely agree with you about Bernie Sanders. I think that he's one of the best candidates that I've seen throughout the whole elections that I've watched.
I think the thing that people also need to keep their eyes open when they're watching information about, let's say, Clinton or with Bernie, because it is contested with those two, is there's something really wonky going on with the media with both of them. And I don't know. I don't want to go all conspiracy theory, Illuminati, or whatever, but it really spoke to the fact that I think Bernie won 3 states in a row, and when I click on news feeds, I just see pictures of Hillary and the super delegates for her, or no mention of the Bernie victories, or even when he wins, it seems like he's losing, and I don't know who's behind the press with Hillary, but her face is there as the face of the Democratic Party, regardless of how successful Bernie is in gaining delegates in the primaries. So I think that there's something with that, and this is the first time I'm actually really paying attention to the concept of the superdelegates, which, if you really put a microscope under it, is crazy to think about. All of these votes that are cast by people who aren't elected, who we don't know jack about, and that they can just they can see Bernie moving ahead in the polls and just say, we're going to give all these hundreds of votes to Hillary just because. And I think this is something that I'm paying a lot of attention to, and I think it did the same thing back in 2000 when we when we had an issue with the Electoral College. I mean, the whole voting thing. There's so much for you guys, me, all the other adults. There are so many obstacles to actually doing a simple vote, where this isn't a true democracy, where it's like one vote and that's it that counts. Like, you might have your one vote and you're going, but there's like, they put these, like, it's almost like a video game. They put these little pitfalls and challenges before you get to it. And I think that once you finally get to casting your vote, you have this other bullcrap with superdelegates, and then when you get to the primaries, you deal with the next bullcrap, which is the Electoral College. And it just gives me a lot to think about with the process, not just the issues.
And on the same token, not to make this two teachers talking at you all day, but like, I love Bernie all day, hashtag Sanders for life, but the way that coverage has come out around Hillary and the way that Bernie supporters are talking about Hillary and things that have been released, it's pretty vicious. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the stuff, Bernie versus Hillary stuff, but I know a lot of people who are like ride or die for Bernie and who would probably, like, if they were driving a car and they saw Hillary broken down on the side of the road, they would just hit her and keep going. Like, they hate Hillary Clinton, and it's not because they disagree with most of her policies. It's a lot of sort of conspiratorial stuff about she's in the pocket of Wall Street, she's fake, she's not a real Democrat, things like that, which I personally don't agree with. I can understand people who would agree with that, but who would benefit most from having Hillary destroyed? And the answer is not really Bernie. The answer is the Republican Party. So if you think about who's going to benefit from this media manipulation, the way these things are being presented, like, it's almost like, you know, if me and Dua were vying for office, it would be an amazing race. And, you know, Q's my Bernie, right? And somebody just slips Q all of these horrible things about me, like, that's from Dua's camp. Like, Dua's trying to take me down through Q. So just be aware that everything you see and read it's not agendaless. Like, people have reasons for doing things. So if you see, like, oh, Clinton won't tell us what she said in her speeches, like, all right, does that make her not qualified to be president? Like, just ask questions before you just, oh, I hate when people don't tell me things. Don't just get pissed off every time you hear something. Actually think about it, because where is this information coming from? What's the purpose?
So what is it like to have positive views on Trump?
Oh, okay. Well, again, I don't agree with his comments. I like his policies, his economic policies. If I had to choose between a party, it'd be the Republican, because they're fiscally conservative. And I value the financial aspect more.
So what is that experience, being fiscally conservative in an environment that is not, more or less? What is that like for you day to day? Is it hard to be the fiscally conservative one in a community like this?
Well, it's not hard. I mean, everyone has their own opinions. I just have my own values. Everyone else has their own values. I just go on with my life.
Okay. The short version of delegates and superdelegates is you have a presidential primary, which is deciding who the nominee is going to be. There are things called delegates, which is basically like, I don't know, tick marks on a board. And you need a certain number of those in order to get the nomination. Some states have winner take all, which means even if it was like 49-51, whoever got the 51, they get all the delegates. Some of it is proportional, so one person would get 51 delegates, one person would get 49 delegates. So it depends on, like, every state is different. Some of them do caucuses versus primaries, which is a whole other thing. It gets really messy and kind of dumb and complicated, which is what you were saying before. It's once you dig into it, it gets really weird. Superdelegates are hand-picked members of that party's community, who are is basically, if I was just like, I like Steve, here's 10,000 votes. You get to decide 10,000 times what everybody else gets to decide once. Because I like this guy. I think he's going to be all right. Like, it's basically just hand-picked people that get super special status, and they get additional say. The thing with superdelegates, which you don't often hear in the news, is that however the votes go, that's typically how they go. A lot of people, especially Bernie Sanders supporters, are getting very upset about, well, the superdelegates are going to swing it for Hillary. Chances are, at least historically speaking, however the popular vote goes, that's how the superdelegates go. That's historically, the superdelegates are not going to go against the will of the people. Is it possible? Could they do it? Yep. If Bernie wins the popular vote, and then they just decide, vote Hillary with the hair, we just like it, they could legitimately do that. That's a thing that they could do. Historically, they go with the popular vote, but that doesn't mean that it's impossible that it could swing it another way. So it's basically, it's a counting game, and they just have to notch up X number. I don't know, for the Democrats, it's like 12 something. I don't know what the magic number is. But.
The issue is that even before primary results for certain states have come in, some superdelegates have already said, I'm going to vote this way or that way, which is what the spicy issue is. Because it's like your state hasn't even voted, and you've already decided where you're going to go. So once the state happens, we'll see which way the superdelegates vote or not, but I think that's the issue, that when you're looking at the Hillary-Bernie numbers, that includes the numbers of delegates that have pledged before the official saying. So
yeah, pledged delegates means like promised. Like, I'm saying I'm going to go for Hillary, even though my state has not decided anything yet. That's what a pledged delegate is. It's kind of crazy.
That sounds pretty crazy.
DA, is this a question? I can't tell what that is. All right, what's up?
Well, I've got a couple of friends who are very into Bernie Sanders, but I don't necessarily agree with them. I've not met anyone who votes for Trump, and that's a good thing. And for Hillary, I don't think I've met anyone who supports Hillary either. So, personally, I don't want to vote for Hillary just because she's a woman. And honestly, I'm kind of worried about having another Clinton and about having Bill Clinton back in the White House. I don't know. I'm not really sure, but I'd probably lean towards Bernie, but not that much. If he does something bad, I'll go the other way.
Lukewarm about Bernie.
So I have a question for you.
Okay.
You said earlier how you're planning to support of Bernie to get really good positions on the side.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yes. And so if Bernie wasn't to get the Democratic nomination, even if they were against Trump, who do you think they would vote for?
So it's an interesting question. There is a sub-Bernie movement called Bernie or Bust, which is basically if Bernie doesn't get the nomination, then F it, I'm not voting. It's basically the, like, I'm just going to abstain because if I can't vote for Bernie, or like I will write Bernie's name in rather than vote for Clinton who I don't like or whatever. I'm torn about that because I think you should vote your morals. I don't like the idea of politics as this creepy game where you just have to, like, if you genuinely hate Clinton and hate Trump and you're just like, who do I hate slightly less? Like, that's just sad and depressing and undemocratic and founding fathers, yada, yada, yada. It just makes me so sad to think of it that way. But I also know that in a state that may be a swing state or where it's questionable who's, in a general election if it's Clinton and Trump, in a state where, like, we are going blue, like that happens in Massachusetts, like whoever the Democratic nominee is, Massachusetts is going to vote for that person, that's going to happen. But there are a lot of states where that's not locked in. So if you are a Democrat, you lean liberal, and you're in a state that's up for grabs, and you supported Bernie and he didn't get the nomination, and you decide not to vote, or you write in Bernie, that is effectively a vote for Trump. Basically, if you are removing your blue voice, you're letting red voices be louder. So to me, it's counterproductive in a very practical, large sense to abstain from voting because your candidate didn't win. At the same time, I can understand voting your morals and saying, like this, I'm going to say who I really want to be president, and even if it's realistic or not, I'm going to do that. So I would rather people just like vote for whoever, like if they're Democrat or liberal or whatever, I would rather them just vote for whoever gets the nomination regardless. But I can understand the people who don't. I think my crew is probably like 60-40. They would vote for Clinton with like a significant group who would just not, which is kind of terrifying.
Is that I truly believe that, like, I don't deserve to vote because my ancestors did it. So I just don't like to vote. That really doesn't answer your questions. I just don't like to vote. Maybe I will one day.
If Q has his way, he'll get you to vote.
Me, I have a lot of family that can vote, so we try to have a lot of discussions, like family events, which is not really like a good thing, but like we try to talk it out. And I have a lot of friends too who like sometimes they don't really pay attention to the election, so I try to get them filled in because like I'm there, but I can't really vote, so I'm just like, hey, vote for me. But that's what I try to do. Anybody else?
Yeah, I guess having discussions is the best thing you can do, since we don't have the power to vote. But yeah, I have all spectrum. Like my family, one of them leans this way, with the others leans the other way. So you can always see the other side, and that's the best way to make your last decision.
For me, my mom is politically involved, and she already has her own opinions. She votes her own way. My dad isn't able to vote because he's not actually a citizen, and so there's not really much discussion. My dad doesn't really care because he can't anyways.
Well, for me, like within my family, a lot of my family has recently been able to vote since like the whole citizenship process and everything. Since we're immigrants, a lot of them don't really completely speak English, so I try to like explain it to them like as much as I can to influence them how like what's working and like what's not and what could affect them and things like that. So.
Obama.
Anybody else in here on 4 more years Obama? Anybody else with me on that? Yeah, I know.
Some countries can just reelect their leader forever.
Yeah. Well, then we used to have that, and then we decided maybe no. Maybe no.
I think that the other part about being an educator is, especially teaching world history, where there are other countries where you have like 20 different parties on the ballot. It makes me want to cry that we only have 2. And that it is so difficult to get a third person in there, even just another person. It really sucks that we just have to decide between a Republican and a Democrat. And I still haven't decided which one I like better between Hillary or Bernie. I can't just on principle deal with Trump. I worked at a law firm where he used to deal with one of his 4 bankruptcies, so I have met him and seen him face to face. And with respect to the gentleman who likes his economic policies, this is a man who filed for bankruptcy 4 times. And you need to look at some of these candidates. Like if they turn in a resume, you need to have experience and qualifications for certain things. Like it's a job, and I still haven't figured out which one has the best resume.
I would probably do Hillary. Just
Between the 3 candidates, I'm still going with Trump because, again, I'm sorry, but the teacher did state that there was bankruptcy, but of course there's the government accumulates money, and why shouldn't it be run like a business? And who knows how to deal with money better than a businessman? And that's just my short little sense.
I'd go with Bernie.
Well, in the spirit of going along the same lines as Mr. Pugh, I'm going to vote for Bernary Flinders.
The name just rolls off the tongue. It's so nice. In lieu of 4 more years of Obama, I'll go Bernie.
Thank you, everyone, for attending the Live Matters. For volunteers and time. Thank you again.